myself, Owen Yadie, and Dan Keck. We happen to be here at CornerSpeak, although we are representing our individual brands, myself being CornerSpeak, and Dan Keck being Mere Diamonds Entertainment. I'd just like to give you an idea of some of the things we're going to cover today on the show, which you get a clue from the title. Shout out to CLEO Lane, RIP to her. Very long innings at 97. That's a lengthy, duration. And well, shall I say Dame CLEO Lane, because she's done a lot in history, world, global music, and for the UK. Also, we're gonna briefly touch on Nollywood movies because there's a lot going on in that arena, increasingly on the world stage. And what was the third topic, Daniel? Pyramids, that's the one. So yeah, those are the three main topics we're gonna touch on. It's gonna be a short one today, and we're just gonna delve into them slightly, climb back out, and probably continue definitely the pyramid subjects on the later stream. As a matter of fact, we're going to be bringing on a third guest who also has a bit of knowledge like Dan Keck does on this particular subject, and we're going to look into it a bit more. There's a lot of information out there, even on YouTube. Experts, professors, people who've spent a lifetime, 40 years studying this stuff, anthropologists, archaeologists. So we're not kind of covering that side of it. We're just going to bring forward the knowledge we know in relation to the pyramids. Daniel?
How's Nollywood looking to you from the perspective of the success that they're having and the movement that's actually happening at the moment? Because Nollywood is called as such because it's basically a phrase that's been coined from Bollywood, and we know that Bollywood is a huge multi-billion-dollar business, billion-dollar pound business. So Nollywood is definitely right there, which is why the phrase was coined. So what's new on the scene?
Because the whole cultural thing, you kind of, as you would say, because you always represent your community first, and there's no implicit bias involved in that. It's just we all come from different directions in society. Now, speaking along those lines, what I used to enjoy immediately at first is just seeing something that's coming from, you could say, my culture, my parents' culture, and not having traveled to Nigeria for some decades now. It was a way of updating myself outside the conversations I'll have with people visually and seeing what's going on there. Because the movies represent what's going on in the world. And yeah, it just struck me how modernized things were. And I was seeing stuff that I see around me here in Europe. The thing is, though, so it was the early days, so you'll have action movies, yeah, like a version of what's that one that famous American actor does, Mission Impossible, and it will be funny because when they do the Nollywood version of the bullets, it's like, wait a minute, I could do that on my computer, Daniel. It does look a little bit, the gunshots, you get the explosion. I'm like, did somebody draw in that fire with a cartoon a graphics pen or something? So yeah, it was a bit B movie comical. That was then. Now, my goodness me, Hollywood grade quality. The standard now, you got next Netflix sponsored movies. It's just, yeah, they've reached that level of production now that, you know, like with the music, you can't really tell the difference between something produced in Hollywood, something produced in Nollywood, something produced in Europe to an extent, and the level of acting. There's so many different actors who are acting to a high level. And on top of all of that, the icing on the cake is the thing that I really admire is they're not trying to do Western, yeah, the narratives are the same in any kind of movies. They're not trying to do like we're trying to be Western actors in Africa or anything like that. They're like being them. You got the pidgin English, you got the food, you got the environments, you got, what people are probably seeing on the streets around them being depicted in the movies. That really piqued my interest. Yeah, you got the dramas, the love stories, the gossipy kind of things. It is entertainment and a lot of comedy. I watched a couple this weekend, and it really, yeah, piqued my interest. And as a result, I'm going to be doing a series. I'm going to be doing a show specifically to review Nollywood movies, just the ones I've watched, without kind of throwing in too many spoilers, telling you why I liked it, what I think the production quality is like, and why I recommend you go and watch the movie. Some of the historical ones, when you're seeing Africa in Nigeria in 1940, the 40s, a particular tribe. You know, we don't get it in the education of here, so you won't think what was going on in Nigeria while the rest of the world was fighting each other in World War II. So to see the imperial thing, governors, and then you got the tribal people and how they interacted, and the jokes, the comedy, they're doing very well. So that's what I've got to say, pretty much about Nollywood. And also, a cousin of mine's went back to Nigeria about 10 years ago now. He was, trained in the whole video kind of movie thing, like on the music side. That's how I knew him. And he got a job on one of their networks, quite a successful series, and that's his home again now. So there's, it's brought opportunities for even some of us in the West to go back out there and get work that we're not being offered over here with our skills.
A lot more about Nigeria per se, the other countries now, because my wife is Nigerian also. Um, but what I'm seeing is that even in the short time, um, the level of the quality of the adverts, the front picture for like the introductory picture for the movie. It's beautiful, isn't it? The trailer. Oh, the credits. The credits. Yeah. Mm. You know what? On another note, to do with that, I was watching a documentary, right, about with some guys that were talking about houses, bruv. Listen, I've seen some houses in Nigeria, right? Oh my God, bruv. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But these houses was like I forgot to even talk to you about this, bro. These houses, right, are like have you come up to the front door, right? As a guest, you come up to the front door and after the door recognizes you. This is another level. The front door recognizes you, and then it says, "Oh, hello, Mr. Owen, Mr. Awadia. This welcome." And the door will and then you put a code in, and the door opens. Right when the door opens, now you go inside, and then you go into like a reception area. The lights come on, right? And then it tells you, oh, hello, how would please take a seat. How would you like the lighting? I'm going to put the TV on for you. Okay. It's a smart home. Now is you put yeah, there's hundreds of them. No, no, there's hundreds of them. Yeah, developing in Nigeria self, and there's a guy that's talking about them. And let me tell you something. I was amazed. I watched about 10, 15 houses. Not even a word of a lie, and some new ones that were being developed, right? And what they were doing was like the house would say to you, okay, what temperature would you like the room? What color lighting would you like in the room? And it says, I'm going to inform the owner, I'm going to inform the proprietor that you have arrived. What would you like to drink? And then you tell you what you like to drink, and then it will alert the waiters the no, no, no. This is you when you've come into the house as a guest, because the front door is called a smart front door. It's just called a smart front door, and it open and once you have either it recognizes you from face rec or you put a code in that you've been pre-given beforehand, and then the door just opens and you go in, bruv. Another level. check it out, guys. It is on another level. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, like what you were talking about, with the Nollywood, I mean, is there anything else that you would like to talk about on that level? Because
Movies, the amount of shows they got out there, dramas, historical dramas, movies, sequels, every subject you can think of. And not like 20 years ago, everything looks slick, everything looks interesting. You got varieties of actors, leading men, leading women. So I'm going to be taking a bit of time, at least one movie a week. I'm going to review and I'm going to do on the Nollywood, CornerSpeak Nollywood review show. Before we move on to giving Cleo Lane, because we're both from a musical background, an RIP shout out. Just like to say briefly a hi to a few of the people we have in the comment sections. We called out Ian Mangum earlier, calls himself Mad Gun. We also, oh, I think he says you froze and now you're back. That's all good. I didn't notice that. I didn't see you freeze. And no, and we've got Anime Edits 2121. Yo to you. We got Sam and Colby. We got Kevin Fatejev. He says hi. Hi back to you. And Kazimieres Pies Cars. It sounds Eastern European. Can't quite translate that, but we'll say hello, hello. Okay.
and if there's anything you want to ask, you can just ask it. So anyway, what else do you want to go into?
Each one. So we know a bit of something, you know a bit of something, you put the collage together, and there's more information for all of us to, chomp away on. I just want to touch on this front cover of the New York Post. Now, you may notice if you've had a chance to look through some of the videos on the CornerSpeak channel, just side tracking from me and Daniel's show for a brief moment. And there was a point where I was covering a lot of US politics and a little bit of global stuff. If you're touching the global, you have to talk about the US because they're the global leaders. It's just the way the era we're living in, the way the cookie crumbles. And about half of our viewers here at Corner Speak are over there in the US. My sister just came back from New York, and I did say to her, "Look, if there's one thing I want you to bring me back is a newspaper. Whether it's left leaning, right leaning, centrist, or whichever. I think New York Post." Kind of in the center, and the reason being, I wanted to, get a story, and just kind of have a sense of what you're seeing over there in the States, at least in your newspapers, because the social media thing is global, and it we know everything has biases to it. So yeah, she gave me this paper today from last Friday, 25th, and we actually did an RIP and we spent a brief bit of time talking about WWE. Was it Thursday? I think, Daniel, we did that show, and we did a shout out to Hulk Hogan. Yep, yep. He had many supporters and a few detractors who, we're all whole people, so none of us is totally, any one particular thing. So yeah, we did a little shout out to him, and they dedicate quite a few pages to his life story. And it was just, yeah, quite a few pages, as a matter of fact. It was just interesting to see what you folks over there, at least in New York, are reading about in your papers. So what I think we're going to be doing here, I'll just round it down, Daniel. What I think we're going to be doing here is we'll probably just show you the cover and take one page from a paper from around the globe on every show. We'll probably get it from the internet, but to see what's going on in different parts of the globe as we are here in the UK. Over to you, Daniel.
So that's quite interesting, actually. Um, yeah, hence the name Mad Gun. I guess. Mm, Yeah, yeah.
Seven, similar age group. So, are you still in the business, Ian, or have you retired from the trade? Oh, while we're at it, Daniel, it's worth mentioning, isn't it, that if you want to join us, yeah, we're not bringing anyone in on webcam at the moment. Actually, let me have a look. Let me have a look if we are able to do that. No, we're not able to do that at the moment. One second, we're not able to do that. But what we can do is we can bring you in on the phone if you feel like there's something you really want to express while we're doing our live. We're gonna give you a number. We can't put it in the out on the screen at the moment, although Daniel can probably put it in the chat. And just for this particular show, if you want to call in, particularly Mad Gun, because I'm sure you can tell us some stories about your movie industry days, and we've been talking about Nollywood, which is the movie industry. I think you got the number, Daniel, the one ending with 104. Could you put it in the chat, please? And if anyone wants to take up that offer and give us a call and do a call in, feel free. In the meantime, while Daniel is doing that, I think we're just about ready to move on to our next subject, which, if anybody can guess by these images I'm holding up in front of the screen now, that's what we want to talk about briefly. The Egyptian pyramids, which I'm sure we all know a little something about. Some say they were built by the aliens. Some say they were built by the pharaohs and their slaves. Others say they were built by specialist crafts people, like, what are they called over here? The Freemasons. Yeah, we got the Freemasons over here. Their version of the Freemasons all in many years ago. So, I mean, I'm not too sure myself. I just know that recently there was an alternative, like, I don't know what they call it, investigation, information that came to light about the construction of the pyramids, and they did some kind of a screen, not screen, land scan thing where you can scan, I think it was from a satellite or something, and get a sense of objects under the earth. And the image they came up with, a 3D image they came up with, was these, like, what are those long things that they used to have to hold up buildings? What are they called? Pillars. Yeah, like pillars, these massive pillars the size of like a skyscraper underneath the pyramids. So some people were saying the image has to be AI sort of altered from the information it gathers. So some people think that could just be like, the thing going in the wrong direction, because it's not like a real, like, x-ray or picture. I watched the whole Piers Morgan show where some of these experts, and one of these Egyptian experts as well, was debating, a few scientists, with the guy and the people who'd come up with this discovery, this new discovery with the imagery under the pyramids, which is leading people to question whether there is major structures beneath the said pyramids. Was you able to put in that number? Oh, I'm not. Oh, actually, I'm not. No, just put in the chat. I mean, to put in the chat. Actually, I might be able to do it from my end. Let me see. Let me see if I can do it. So I'm handing over to you, D, while I try and do that. So I'll let you tell our viewers a bit about the pyramids, because you're more knowledgeable than myself on that one. Is that cool?
It's a specific device that's been created for several things. All right. Now, there's all the myths that are going on, and the myths actually speak about the fact that, oh, it was created to bury mummies, and mummies is the name that they gave to the people who have been mummified and placed in a tomb, in a burial tomb. And there has been no proof whatsoever that any of them have been created to bury as a burial chamber. Because as we know, if you think about it, every single um, um, and I call them authority because that is actually the correct name for them. They're called authority, which is rulers and basically people from that time, but just call them mummies for now, right? So the mummies, they don't. Every time they get buried, they do buried without sending untold amounts of without accumulating untold amounts of gold and all types of precious objects with them. So they're not going to take that and put that in a pyramid above the ground and say, hey, here we are. No, they're not going to do it literally just for that reason alone. And there has never been, yes. There was only been one sarcophagus found in the pyramid, and that was empty, right? And it didn't it didn't have no, they never found a mummy. It didn't house any type of a tomb of a sarcophagus of any sort. Okay, sarcophagus is also the word where we get coffin from. Sarcophagus, coffin. Yeah.
Okay.
So what happens is that the pyramid is many things. One of the things it is, it's also a communication device. And the other thing it is, it's an electromagnetic amplification device, which has a wave that comes off the top of the pyramid called a standing columnar wave, which is a wave that it's a standing columnar wave actually moves faster than the speed of light. Um, and this information is not information just coming from me. It's also coming from um, the master teacher, who I call him the master teacher. His name is Malachi Z. York. And you can do lots of research and find out exactly who he is. He's alive today and an absolute leader of nations. But I'm just talking about the information that is out there that he put out 40 years ago and people are only talking about now. So yeah, the pyramids were placed, and also they were also not in the condition that we see them in now. I just want to finish this. Now the pyramids now are in a state of disrepair. When they were first done, okay, they were completely smooth black granite, red granite, red granite. I'm getting there, yeah, and white granite, yeah. So there are different colors, and when people used to come from other countries, continents, to come over to see them, they were like in complete awe. Obviously, to the point where they decided to just desecrate, dilapidate the pyramids to to the state that we see them in today, and we think, wow, there's such a phenomenon today. Anyway, what was you going to say, Owen?
Trying to find out more about the pyramids and the origin of the pyramids. Before I go into that, I'd just like to say big thanks to and shout out to Kevin Fatejev, who's just subscribed to the channel. Very much appreciated. If you can like, subscribe, comment, we all, any of that is much valued and appreciated because it helps us do what we're doing and it pushes the channel and the show along. Um, and just to answer to yeah, just to answer to an earlier question by our stuntman, Mad Gun, we've kind of moved on a bit from then, and he wanted to know what we was going to be moving on to next, and we're actually in the flow of it now, which is the pyramids. The numbers there. Anyone wants to call in? If you feel like calling in, Mad Gun, and joining the conversation, the narrative, please do. Phones right here, ready to receive your call. I would just want to ask Daniel. There's so many scholars, and I don't know how many decades of study of the pyramids. I know during the Victorian era. Just go further back. Just go back to that French emperor Napoleon when he won a big war over there and took over from, I don't know, whoever the group of countries, European countries it was, whether it was the Polish or the British or the Russians. So during the height of the Napoleonic era, and he won some big battle over there. And I think the French kind of took over for a period of time. They took some of the artifacts that were found, from what I understand, in the burial grounds, and each era, there's been, I'd say, more man than, there's been female archaeologists too, probably more so now. But the way mankind has affected the history with the interest in knowing how it came about, as Daniel alluded to, different degrees of damage has been done. And more recently now, there's this debate and kind of argument going on amongst the scientists and the academics and the experts, whether it is justified for them to drill into the actual pyramids to do certain types of tests that could be very valuable in terms of the knowledge they'll gain from it, or if by drilling into the pyramids, the damage they're going to be doing kind of crosses some kind of a line. So that is like a big issue currently in the world of Egyptologists, etc. And the last thing I would say is, I personally haven't heard any definitive, clear, how can you say, sort of understanding of how the pyramids came about, what their purpose are. I've heard some of what Daniel described, as in, they've done some tests and studies which led them to believe there's a magnetic aspect to the pyramids. They might have had some, early way of generating energy, be it electricity or something, to do with the design of the pyramids and their construction, etc. So I've heard stuff along those lines. There's so many different angles. There's the people who believe, in a more simple story, that there was a spiritual aspect to it. People used to worship the stars, and where the pyramids are placed lines up with certain, what do they call it, constellations. No, you don't have to answer them. I'm putting some of it out there as well. Okay.
Um, what was the first point you made? So the first point, no, the first point you made. Pardon?
The information there, I don't think there's anything definitive.
This same kind of thing where people will take it and utilize it for their own gains, and then attempt to get to certain other levels of scientific achievement that is not rightfully theirs, because it's been put in place for a particular reason. But just to go back a bit, you're talking about the pyramids and how, and drilling into the pyramid. That's the first thing you said. They've already gone into the pyramid. There's many different levels of what they've gone into. There's something called the Queen's Chamber, which is at the top, and there's a King Chamber, which is at the bottom, and it's a shaft. But what happens is that the Sphinx, to touch on Napoleon, okay, the Sphinx, which is at the head of the three pyramids, okay, it originally had the face of a man, and then it was replaced. It originally had the head of a lion, and it was replaced by the head of a man. But while that in that process, okay, after that process, Napoleon decided to come and actually point a cannon at the face of the Sphinx and blow it off, because he said, and he said some famous words. Oh, I cannot remember the famous words, but the point is that he said, this is not what the depiction of what we want to see, because it had an African nose and it had African, or Nubian lips and all the rest of it. But what happens is that with the pyramid has so much going on, that what you have to realize is it was built by a far more advanced civilization, and the civilization is over 10,500 years old. So the age of the pyramid is straight away conflicting with all of the information of what we talk about when we talk about Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve is, you establish the age by water deterioration, and you establish the age by the it's called um carbon dating. Yeah. So with carbon dating, those things are things that can establish the age of a structure. But obviously stones and limestone, and where the stone came from, is also another thing they use to actually tell you where it came from, what region in the world. And it didn't just come from around the corner, it came from over 500 miles away. And they're saying that the stone and where it came from, Joppa and other places like that, is it's impossible. It was impossible at those times to actually transport the stones there. But what you're going to realize is that um thank you, Mr. Margon. What you're going to realize is that there's far more than the eye meets, than the eye sees, right? The stones were put together first of all, right? um one by one, bam, 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 bam. Okay, the stones are 100. There's no cement. There's no cement keeping those stones together. The stones are put together, okay, without the use of cement. On another level, I'm not even talking about the highly complicated structure of what's going on inside the pyramids, because they also have a shaft which goes from the center of the king's chamber all the way out to the outside of the pyramid, at the top, near the top, not pointing straight up, pointing out at 30-degree angle, 45-degree angle. And it is actually, can I just finish that point? It's pointing at this. It's pointing at a star constellation called the Orion star constellation. And 10,500 years ago, they worked that out, that once it originally aligned with that star constellation, and the light from the Orion star constellation would come straight in to the center of the of the king's chamber, and obviously had effects of doing something which I'm not going to go into right now. But is there anything you want to say? You want to ask the question or something?
I won't say speculation. You have scientists that can verify why they have. Well, none of us were there though. So for me, when you talk about an era where I was not there, I mean, yeah, you got the kind of sort of I don't know, if you believe in a scientific kind of outlook on the world, or if you've got a more philosophical way of viewing and accepting, information that we're offered in the world. I mean, when when it comes to some things, it's like, yeah, I know that they've, for over 50 years, they've been trying to figure out how did they move though that limestone from an area where they say, at least their knowledge tells them, that it only, okay, 150 years, you'll give it that number. They'll say that stone only can be found in a certain part of the Middle East, which was, miles and miles away from where the pyramids were built. So just one of the like conundrums or like logistical problems they were trying to solve is how they managed to move without modern day equipment those stones over such a great distance. Not alone how did they manage to put them into place, then you got the other issue of that isn't easy stuff to cut. How did they manage to cut the stones? That's the second problem that they're trying to figure out. How did they solve that without modern technology? Then they're also looking at the precision, a lot of aspects of the pyramids. And I was going to say this when you're talking about that light thing at 30 degrees that points to a constellation, that there's so many aspects of the pyramids, and a lot of these scientists have written papers on these things, that it's so precisely worked out. They're still trying to figure out how they managed to, what tools did they have, because they've even discovered some tools. They've dug up some tools which was some of the primitive, call it for want of a better word, building tools that they used in that period, and they're connecting it to.
Hieroglyphics and some things like that. And that's similar hieroglyphics.
And then you get another school equally will bring up exactly the same amount of information, say it's not really plausible at that point in time, and you can explain away the film. So there's always two sides.
Of be all and end all to a level of it, but they do have their opinions, and opinion, we know what opinions are like. But can I just can I answer yeah, can I answer some of the points? Pardon?
So it's not, I'm not saying, oh, just because they're scientists they're all right. I'm saying they're just like anyone else. There'll be a debate going on there. There'll be, I believe that, I believe that. It just gives information to put on the scales. What I'm saying though, how do you, yeah, how do you,
Factual and commonsensical, okay, information to show you that you are way, way, way more advanced than me because of what you have been able to achieve. Because of the fact that the pyramid, or the main one at Giza, or Giza, to be precise, is built 30 degrees longitude by 30 degrees latitude. It's built in the exact center almost of the earth, right? So
of when I was talking about the building materials, that some of these archaeologists say that these are some of the tools. They didn't say exactly what aspects of the pyramids they were used for, but they were putting them in the grouping of tools used by builders in that period of time, and most likely some similar tools was used to build the pyramids. So what I'm saying is, how do you tie that, what you were just speaking about, how do you tie that into defining whether this school of thought is more correct than that school of thought, or if either of them could be wrong? How do you weigh it up is the question I'm asking.
it's a process. That process is a process that makes you ask the right questions, and the right and or ask it's called learn to learn. Yeah, you learn how to actually learn. Once you learn how to learn, okay, then every question is not a dumb question. And none of the questions you've asked is silly. The one of the questions that you're asking is questions that a lot of people have, that ask, that don't know or haven't gone to a particular level of thing. And then there's people who are very highly so-called intelligent, and they ask questions because the only source of information that they have right, is information from the way that we have been taught, which is education, or what we like to say, edited dictation, right? But all I'm saying to you is that I'm just going to go with the actual facts that are there. Everything I'm saying, you can actually fact check yourself. I'm not going to go with any, and then I can touch on some spiritual aspects. But let's just talk about, yeah, but it depends on the man. Yeah, so
Same ground, I've done the same research, maybe using different methods of logic, or different tools. Okay. No, no, that's good. That's good. It could be, I'm saying.
and you don't know about the heritage and the genealogy of that child, okay, then you're going to raise that child in a way that is a little bit foreign to the child. But if you are a parent, and as a parent you're raising two parents, you're raising a child, and you parents are completely different from that child, okay, there's parts of the DNA of that child that's not going to be nourished because you haven't raised it correctly. And the simple thing of that is, like, this is all an analogy, by the way, yeah, is that, is, let's say, two Caucasians then raise a Nubian baby, a dark-skinned child, and they don't know about the fact that the hair needs to be combed with a Afro comb. Okay, they're not going to be able to do that. They don't realize that if you don't put grease in the hair, yeah, if you don't put grease or oil in the hair, it's going to not actually develop in the same way. They don't realize that there's certain foods that you need to give the child, and certain ways that you need to do. So what I'm saying is that there's different sides to the same coin. Yes, it is a human being, but then what type of a human being it is. So on also, if you are studying a culture, right? If you're studying a culture, okay, you have your way with your culture, how you're studying a different culture with a completely different technology, ecosystem, and everything that's involved in that particular. So you will never understand, or I like to say, overstand that culture if you only have that your culture and the way that you look at things.
I hear that. I hear that. Mhm.
Be something else. But if you're not open-minded enough to actually really understand or study that person's culture, then you will never get to the bottom. It's like the Bible, yeah, to just touch on that a little bit. Okay, the Bible's been translated into Old Greek, Old French, Old German. Yes. Yeah. So so the Bible has been translated into about eight to 10 different languages. So if someone says, "Oh, I got up one day and I walked down to the corridor, or I walked out into the open, and then I saw a friend of mine and I said hello, and then I walked to another level and I saw another place and I saw another friend of mine." You interpret that down through the years, and you interpret that in Greek, German, Latin, French, Old German, it is called, yeah, and then these different languages, Hebrew and Aramaic, which is going back to the original languages. Okay, then it's gonna lose a little bit of the way, but what we tend to do, what they tend to do, is say, "Oh, but the overall message is still there, regardless of the."
sent it off in different directions.
Book that people don't understand why things were said and why things were done that way, and then they do that big thing of interpreting it. So this is but so I like to stay open, okay, and look at all sides. So back to with the pyramids, yeah, yeah. Okay, so so anyway, with the pyramid, with the pyramid side of things, okay, yeah, the scientists can continue to debate and so on and so forth, but now there's a whole nother level of things that have opened up because of what things you were mentioning, right? Before we're going to close this subject and move on still, or rather come to the end of it, yeah.
Depth on another stream, often bringing in more views. Yes, of course, of course.
On much of the technology and the stuff that's going on in the pyramids and the way it's done. But another level is now that they've found whole columns and an ecosystem that existing underneath the pyramid, which is massive columns that come down. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I was saying to you. Yeah, it was a scan. It wasn't a satellite. It was done via infrared. Okay, and what they did is they infrared. They had the permission and they infrared the entire thing, and they found that there were giant columns with spirals going down, which they yeah. Let's just yeah, but let's just go with what they have found. They claim that they found. Yeah. So
Be established. And the world of science look at it like that as well. They argue amongst themselves, but until they what do they call it? They reach they've achieved certain they have a certain criteria before they will release a paper and say, right, now we can definitively say the pyramids have been there for 2,500 years, and there's structures underneath, 3 levels, 2 floors, or whatever, rather than speculation. Or there's an image that looks like columns.
can I just yeah, I heard you. I heard you. I heard you. Okay, so can I? But okay, let's just go with what the AI generated images have shown. Okay, so that I can finish that, and then we can move on, and then decide whether it's true or not. Whether it's true or not is where it's. I mean, it's like it's like let the listener weigh it up and decide. So it can go. It's the same way before they went into the pyramid that they discovered that there was other thing that there was the king's chamber and the queen's chamber in there, and then it comes to light that it's true. Just the same way with the Sphinx, where they realize that there's also a whole section underneath the Sphinx where there's actually masses of water, and then there's actually some sort of we'll just say a black subject in there, which is like it could be a craft, it could be something. There's all these different things going on.
What's the other thing that they carve in and kind of write through images? They had you could say information that described some things that they were able to verify when they got into certain chambers, to say, so there were mummies, or they did wrap the mummies, or give them put them through a certain process for to mummify the person, or they did bury the pharaoh, or in the Chinese case where they would bury the soldiers and what's not. The king would be buried with a lot of his possessions, and in not just the pyramids, but historical. So they've had that information either in writing or some other form, then they verified it physically when they found the evidence. In terms of what's under the pyramids, I don't know if there's any information that they've come about sort of hinting to that. They say they know about. Yes, yes, I hear that.
Like pillar type structures going underneath it with winding tube going down, which can possibly be like either stairs, yeah, or some type of a chamber that causes fluid or something to rise. And also, they've talked about the fact that that's also a possibility of being something that actually makes water rise up from the ground. I mean, years ago, I found I was studying some people who was talking about the fact that the pyramid is actually a water device that enables water to flow. So there's and water has a lot of properties in it that have got a lot of things going on.
Years scientists, 20 years scientists on the other side, bringing up their evidence that they present as evidence, then the other one presents their evidence. Sometimes it kind of like brings it into the middle where you can't really say, well, his one is truer than his, because there isn't that.
um, there's also information that they do not want you to know. So what they'll do is they'll put out information that contradicts something that's real. And then you then start to debate and twist and turn it all around and take it all to all these different levels and get confused, because confusion is an element of what they like to do to make. I'm not saying it's confusion. I'm saying it's an element that people like to do to throw a spanner in the works so that you don't get to actually focus on certain things. It's like there's a young man that's created diesel fuel from used plastics. He must have seen it on IG and those kind of places. And he's actually got to a level now where he's able to produce it, and he's gone and he's taken a car, taken out all the fuel from it and then put in his thing, and he's getting celebrated all over the place because he's built his own reactor, and he's discovered a way to actually create from waste something that that they haven't been able to do, or maybe they have known about it, but they haven't actually utilized it because they want to utilize the oil from crude oil. So there's lots of things, and there's many new things that are going to come from things that exist already. Anyway, so yeah, on that note, is there anything else you want to talk about, Owen?
Maybe the direction we're probably going to go in the next stream or future streams, if there's anything that comes to mind. And before we do that, I'd just like to give a quick shout out to Jamazzy Breezy. We do like to give these little shout outs to people who take the time to either stop by, catch some of the stream, or take a minute to, put something in the comments, because we value that. It's our purpose for being here. It keeps the show going. It shows YouTube that, what we're doing here is of value to anyone who stumbles onto the stream and spends a minute checking us out. And yeah, we talk amongst each other. We've done this for years on the phone. We pick up the phone sometimes and we go into these long conversations, sharing knowledge and information. Now with this show, we've chosen to, bring that to a wider audience. So we're going to do these shout outs just to let those in the comment section and those watching the stream know that we appreciate their engagement, and we'll appreciate if they continue to stay engaged on future shows as well, because that's the whole purpose of this platforming info.
5 years of studying information about all of that, and I like to look at all sides. I don't look at one side only. So we can get to the bottom of certain things that enables everyone to get a little bit of what you call enlightenment on that.
there's some things that we're poles apart on, and there's some things that I just like to go away. Something I might hear for the first time in the conversation, I like to go away and study up on a little bit, and then because I like to review experiences for myself. So that doesn't mean if somebody tells me there's something in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that does this, that, the other, that I have to go to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So that not being practically possible, I would still like to, in my own time, look about and see if I can locate some information to give me a little bit more to weigh up. I like to weigh things up, and then I'll make a definitive decision. Sometimes it's just opinions. I might warm to one point of view more than the other. So we're as most human beings, we're going to come from our own perspectives, and we're going to come from, sometimes it's a factual basis, sometimes it's something that maybe we feel a little bit emotionally inclined to adopt as as a form of understanding. So yeah, go. Or disprove. Yeah, please.
Say information that I know, because it's all about enlightening. It's all about us both growing. So when I do this, I don't do this to say this is exactly what's going on and it's the only. I'm only talking to you about information that exists out there, not for me, but for all of us. Turn the M upside down from me, and what do you get? You get we. Okay, so I'm about all of us growing and developing. I'm not about just myself. I'm not here to pretend that I've got more knowledge than anybody else. So let's be clear on that. And I'm not self-opinionated. I'm dealing with information that is shared. Otherwise, I'd be keeping it to myself, and I wouldn't be saying it on no podcast. I'd be just talking. I'd just be just talking, tra la 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 la. And but guess what? I'm not no tra la 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 man. I deal with facts beyond the shadow of the doubt wherever I can.
All the time. But inside that unity, there's a natural dynamic of movement, because that's the balance of the world, isn't it? It's not just one side or the other side, or a static, unmoving, object. There is movement, and sometimes the movement is towards something, and then you gain some form of enlightenment, and you move in a different direction. Sometimes you're moving away from something, you gain some information, and you realize it's necessary to move back to it, because that's where the facts and the correctness lies. So we're going to sometimes put information out there. As Daniel said, we ain't always going to be standing on the right foot, and if there's somebody with greater knowledge on any of these topics, please come and inform and enlighten us. Drop the information into the in the comments. So again, please like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so, and leave your feedback, views, and opinions in the comments. I'd just like to, before we wrap up, read something briefly. This is to do with the pyramids, because we're kind of closing on this topic for now. It says here, some scientists, because we spoke about the drilling thing, I brought it up, and so did Daniel. Some scientists are interested in drilling into the pyramids to explore a newly discovered void. The void Daniel was talking about, with the spiral columns or staircases within the Great Pyramids of Giza. You did say it was specifically Giza. Yeah.
The pyramid itself. Go ahead.
In the within the Great Pyramids of Giza, Daniel is saying it's in the upper chambers. So I'll continue on now, and it says, and to potentially uncover more about the structure's construction and purpose. The void identified using cosmic ray imaging is a large unexplained space that could be a chamber or a corridor. Drilling would allow for direct observation and analysis of the void's contents, potentially revealing whether it's a structural element or holds other secrets. Okay, and then they kind of go into it in a slightly bit more depth. Very brief. I'll just reel it off while I'm at it. Here's a more detailed explanation, and you can find this easily on Google. Now we have the AI facility. It says the void, a large void, possibly a chamber or corridor, and discovered in the Great Pyramids using muography, a technique that measures how cosmic rays pass through materials. Interesting. That's a new. I never really even knew about that technique, muography. Learn a new thing every day. Scientific curiosity. The void's purpose is unknown, and scientists are eager to learn more about its function. Some theories suggest it could be a structural component designed to relieve weight on the Grand Gallery, while others speculate it might be a hidden chamber. Three other sections briefly: drilling for knowledge. To investigate further, some scientists propose drilling a small hole into the pyramids to insert a robot for exploration and analysis. This is linked to modern technology because they wouldn't have been considering things like this in the past because they didn't have the technology to drill something and then put some kind of a robot into the chamber to send back pictures and explore. Last two sections, it says potential discoveries. Direct access to the void could reveal whether it's filled with debris, contains artifacts, or offers insight into the pyramid's construction techniques and the civilization that built it. The final section is ethical considerations. I think I alluded to this or touched on it when I said some scientists were or Egyptians who, for them, that's their kind of heritage. That's part of their culture, and the outside world have come in and have been meddling with it for many years. So some of them just object to it on principle, damaging the structure. I'm not sure if that's what they're going to say here. That's what I heard on the discussion. So what they say here is, while the prospects of drilling is exciting for scientific discovery, there are ethical considerations about potentially disturbing a historical monument. I've heard some of the Egyptologists objecting to it for those kind of reasons. Any drilling would need to be carefully planned and executed to minimize any negative impact on the pyramid structure, structural integrity, and historical content. Full stop. There you have it. Our take on the Egyptian pyramid, something we're going to delve into further on a future stream. And Daniel is probably going to do on his platforms, he's probably going to do a show where he's able to go into this in greater depth, uninterrupted, and probably branch out into some, sub aspects of the whole thing, because it's not a small story, it's not a small book. The pyramids hold, whether you're looking at the spiritual, the astrological, or the actual construction aspects of it, the geographical aspects. Some say they moved the boulders across the Nile. It was done by water. That's how they could manage the weight. Some say it was some kind of using logs to roll it across the desert. It's that's a whole discussion. So there you go. Okay.
Thing. And also logs would just crumble underneath it, and so it is possible to move it on boats. But I mean, one of the cornerstones on the pyramid is 300 tons, and many of the stones are in the hundreds of tons. You know, yeah, yeah. There's tens of thousands of blocks that actually built those pyramids, and also the only way that those pyramids, that the rocks, the boulders could have been, the limestone could have been cut is by laser. That's the only way they can cut those stones so precisely, even in today. Big up the red dwarf. Sure, I have no idea. No, no, I'm not going to try and work it out.
Thank you for the four current viewers which we currently have, and thank you to everybody. And the last commentator who did the big up to the red dwarf shirt, which is Bronson Guthrie. You get the trophy for being the last person to comment on tonight's stream. To our 4 solitary viewers, Dan Keck in North London, myself in Southwest. We out.